tonight. Sweat and blood hits the mat. Crowd goes wild just like that. Refs counting up to three. 1, 2, 3, winner. You see, 1, 2, 3, winner. Referee shouts louder.
Welcome, everybody. It's your boy Versace Stoner. We're here with 1, 2, 3 winner, where you can be a winner today. Today, we're actually talking with a very special guest, Ref Charles Fuller. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to start a show that was different than my regular wrestling podcast because, I talk to a lot of wrestlers and some refs, but I wanted to just spotlight a show about referees because to me they are one of the key players in any wrestling match, whether they're seen, not seen, whatever the role is, it's all part of it. That makes the match a match.
Yes, sir.
So when did you start getting into refing?
So it started back in June of last year. I went to a wrestling school about an hour from my house. Got trained by Ace Montana. It's funny because I wanted to be a wrestler at first, but that didn't work out. So then I became a referee and made my debut November 18th. So
Now let me ask you. You said you wanted to be a wrestler, so you went in. You went to the school. Was it just something that wasn't for you, or did you just realize like it's too much, like physicality? Because you hear about a lot of people that come in, and some people, they go in, they want to be refs. Some refs want to turn into wrestlers, but the basic training is kind of, I heard, the same.
So I went in. I've always wanted to be a wrestler, but it was like it wasn't for me, and it was like too physical. And then I have a bleeding disorder, so I was like, this isn't the smartest idea to do when you have a bleeding disorder. And luckily, being a ref was awesome, and I got to do it.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Similar. I mean, I tried. I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I went, tried to go to school for it, but I was at the time they weren't looking for like little people in wrestling, and I was 5'8", 140 pounds. They were like, no, we really can't do much with these, so I just kind of like left. But if you fast forward to today's era of wrestling and how much more inclusive it's gotten, there's almost a role for everybody. And if pro wrestling or you can't fight, then there's definitely a role to be filled in as a ref or, whatever else. So you can still be in the business and still, be part of the show.
Definitely. There's always different areas in wrestling where you can fit in. There's managers, there's ring announcers, there's ring crew, there's all sorts of areas you can do. You don't have to just be a wrestler.
No, and like I said, I think of the ref as the third person in that match because they can do so much to tell a story, whether it's get distracted or it's whether count somebody out or be their own person and turn go into business for themselves against somebody else or be aligned with one of the other refs. Like there's so much that refs can do that change the outcome of a match from a fan point of view. And then you got all the stuff that you really have to do, which is keeping both the guys and girls and people safe in the ring.
Yes, sir.
um and I think that's the kind of the other thing. People know it, but not a lot of people talk about it. The refs are, the first person that's going to know if, someone has a concussion, if someone's, broken something, because you're down on that ground level. You're going in, checking, pretend, you're going for whatever. And, you're asking people constantly, you okay? Did that work out? Was that bump okay? Are they still, conscious? You got to check all that out because it is, like I said, it's safety first in the ring.
Oh, definitely. Safety first. And a lot of times, well, all the time I'm in the ring and I'll always like, after like a big move or check and see if they're okay. Because I don't want them to continue if they're hurt or not able to do it.
Yeah, yeah, no, and and sometimes like I said, especially things can be going on so fast, and especially everything in real time. you got to react kind of fast to when accidents do happen because it can happen to the best of wrestlers. Something, a small mistake.
Right.
So let me ask you, what was training to be a ref like? Was it almost similar to being like a wrestler? Did you have to go in there and like learn how to bump and all that? Still the
No,
same?
no. So I didn't bump mainly because I can't because of my bleeding disorder.
Yeah.
So basically, what you do is just stand there in the corner, and then when they go in the corner, break it up. When there's a pin, pin it, and then when the guys are in the ring training to be a wrestler or like doing their bumps or whatnot, you're on the outside just watching referee clips.
And basically just helping them, if they're having like practice matches, you jump in as their practice ref and kind of worked it that way. And I
Yes,
just ask because some refs do, they learn the whole thing, how to bump and everything, just because sometimes it can be physical job. You don't know, somebody could run and ram into you, somebody could bump into you. Um, you are in the middle of a fight at some points where things are kind of chaotic. But again, good ring awareness and knowing what's going on and not really getting lost in the match, you'll be able to kind of figure things out as you go. Now you're in the North Carolina region, is that correct?
yes, sir.
So what promotions are down there that you what's the wrestling scene like down there?
So North Carolina, we got a bunch of wrestling promotions. Like one company I do is on my shirt, Wrestling Evolution. I have multiple different shirts because I can't wear a company's logo when I'm at a different company. But there's Wrestling Evolution who runs mainly in Denver. There's Wrestling for Tries. There's Firestar. There's Deadlock Pro Wrestling. There's multiple. There's over 100 promotions in North Carolina.
That's awesome because my wife's got family down there and like she's always trying to get me to go down there and I'm like, okay, I guess. But like the first time I went down, I think it was like we were at the Atlantic Beach. We went down for Thanksgiving. It was nice, but now that I know there's just so much wrestling down in North Carolina, she has family else, but I'm gonna stop pushing the idea to go down there. Be like, let's go down. We haven't visited in a while, and this way I can see some new wrestling. That's awesome that you guys got like a thriving scene down there, though. I always like to ask because here in New England we have some great wrestling, and some might even say the best wrestling because we've had a lot of guys and girls go from here to AEW, WWE, every place. And with all that takes place, it's kind of hard to kind of find time to watch other promotions, at least for me. But I kind of make the time. Like there's people that I meet, all across doing this, talking interviews. I've met friends in Kansas, West Virginia, Texas, and they've all, shown me promotions. I'm like, oh, cool. Now I'm following them all on like whatever platform that I can watch it on. Because for me, I like indie wrestling in general. But I love to see the different styles because I'm sure that the North Carolina style is totally different than when we get here in Boston.
Yes, sir. And I want to make it up to the New England area. I love it, and I want to go up there and expand.
Oh, definitely. There's like again, you say there's a lot of promotions up here, good places to get starting points and even like you said, expand outward. And like some of the best wrestlers in wrestling comes through this area. We're very blessed. But now I'm like I said, you got me with all those promotions. I really want to watch some North Carolina wrestling. Um, just because, like I said, I always just wonder what each state kind of entails. Now, do you guys need an athletic license or commission or anything like that?
In North Carolina, no, you don't need a license to referee a wrestling, but if you go down South Carolina, Kentucky, Alabama, Virginia, you'll need a license.
Okay. It's
And
kind of like here, we don't need anything in Mass, but like you go to New Hampshire, you need something, and then everywhere else you don't need anything. But the one state you do, you kind of got to get it.
yeah, like I want to do South Carolina, and I'm in the process of getting it. You have to get a physical, send in $50 for application, and do a whole bunch. So I just need to get the physical and complete the whole thing to get it.
It almost sounds similar to like when I had to do for like like back in the day when I did had like sign up for amateur boxing through USA Boxing. Kind of like you gotta go show that you can stand up, you can breathe, and you're not gonna die in the ring, and then like basically pay them money.
Yes, sir.
Um, but and now if you do get it, that means you can go down there for however long, and that will just keep expanding you onward and onward. Which is, like you said, is the goal. You want to get to as many promotions and work as many different matches and different people as you possibly can.
Right. You can't keep working the same 50-mile radius. You need to expand, and that's why I try and get more out of North Carolina. Like, I'm born and raised in Virginia, but I moved to North Carolina because North Carolina is the heart of wrestling, and that's where all the big companies are, all the big wrestlers come from. So I was like, let me move to North Carolina because in Virginia, it, I was roughing, but not as much as I wanted to. So North Carolina was like my goal and dream. And ever since moving down here, almost all my weekends have been booked.
That's awesome, though. And and to get to work for different people and get to move around and to be booked like that, I mean, you're doing something right. Um, because just for every promotion, there's probably 10 or 15 reps out there looking to work.
Yes, sir.
Um, but not everybody's got a mullet like you. That's for sure.
Yes,
Actually, I
sir.
don't think anybody does. I think you got like the top mullet in the world.
Yes, sir. Mullet, mullet mania.
That's awesome. I mean, is that something that you like went in with as you started to go, or is that something that kind of evolved when you were working?
So I never. It kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I've had the mullet for like 2 years. I love having a mullet, and then one day at a show, someone goes, "Mullet ref," and it's just started ever since then.
Now you got to go with it. I mean, nobody
Uh,
else is doing that.
it's my little gimmick and like what stuck to me, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and you'll hear. I guess I've heard too. Different places maybe you're like, "Oh, refs shouldn't have this or shouldn't do that." I'm like, well, no, they really should because again, they come out. They're part of the show. They're part of the entertainment. You want their real job of being, safety gatekeeper, kind of hidden behind, the kayfabe, checking people for foreign objects, breaking up counts, going in, seeing if they're gonna submit and tap, while like I said, performing the real task at hand and making sure the match is going as planned and no one's getting hurt.
Right, and
But you want to be entertaining as well. If you just stand there looking like like a ref on TV, it won't look right. You need, it's wrestling. It's not anything else. So it's like refs can have a little attitude, they can have a little charisma, like they can have a little bit of that.
like you seen back in like the older days, like WWF and WCW, the refs always like got into it and like got a little sassy and had their own things. Like Charles Robertson, who I look up to, who's an awesome ref and really helped me out. You seen him as Little Nate's Ric Flair, and uh, it's refs need to stand out.
Yeah, and at the same point, I think also stay hidden. You know when to kind of pull back your role to let the two wrestlers or many wrestlers, whoever's in the ring, kind of shine through. You're not going to constantly be stealing their spotlight, and that's the thing. That's why I say it's the third man because you're in there, you do your little thing, then you work off. They're doing most of it, and then you come back in. You might have another spot, but you have your own mannerisms, the way you look, your reactions. That's all part of the character. How
Right.
you react to a big move. You look shocked. You look, oh my god. You look in disgust. You turn away. Like there's different things if you actually study like refs and what they do, that they all do something kind of a little bit different.
Right. And it's just, I kind of want to stand out too, because like I feel like it makes the match a little more fun if like the ref has a little like character to it. Like I'll be out in the ring and I'll hear the crowd chant, "You suck, mullet ref," or "Your mullet sucks." Like one time I was in Georgia uh and North Carolina too, and had a guy yell out, "Your mullet sucks," and he was bald, and so it was funny having a bald guy yell out, "Your mullet sucks, and you need to get cut." So,
No, but I mean, like I said, either which way, whether they like you or hate you, it's a good, it's a good, I don't know, it's a good conversation piece, but it's a good way to, like I said, like kind of like draw innocent heat. It's nothing really bad, but there's gonna be people out there that are gonna laugh at. Oh, look at the kid with the mullet. Oh, he's so out of style, or whatever it is, and they can do that, and it's not really any effect, and or they might be like, "That's awesome, the kid's bringing the mullet back, hell yeah," and they might be on that level, and that's great too. So, like, no matter which way you kinda go with it, it works, and it doesn't really cause, like, any harm. It's nothing controversial, it's a mullet.
right.
So one of the simplest things is just, like a haircut. Everybody gets a haircut. If you get a haircut that sells for you, that's like, a naturally born gimmick. It's pretty cool, I think. Because
Yes,
again, I've seen all different refs, nothing with that, nothing with hair.
it's just a small detail in a small Easter egg that you will get a huge pop out of. Like I had shirts made that say mullet ref and mullet mania, and my first shirt I ever made, it was supposed to say mullet mania, but the company misspelled it and put mullet manina. So that's kind of my thing when I go to some companies. People are like, "Hey, look, it's mullet manina."
Things that happen in wrestling that will never be forgotten, right?
Right. And another
Uh,
thing, oh, go ahead.
no, no, go. I was just
Another thing that I love that kind of like sticks out is I sell zebra cakes, the little Debbie's, and also little zebra statues. And everywhere I go, people are like, "Oh, you have zebra cakes? Do you have them?" And I sell out of them fast. I'll
that's smart.
Yeah, I'll buy like 2, 3 boxes and I'll sell them. And it says it's awesome to think about because like you would never think like selling that would be such a big thing, but it's so cool.
It is because I mean, a lot of people call the refs zebras, and they get the stripes and whatever. The wrestlers call those zebras. It's a small thing again, but it's something cool that you don't see refs out there doing any kind of really merch sales, and you taking something and again being creative with it. I find that to be awesome. That's thinking outside the box. That's doing things that isn't being done. At least I'm not seeing that. At the shows I go to. And I have to commend that. I remember when I first got into indie wrestling, because I grew up watching wrestling, a lot of wrestling. WWF was my jam, all through my childhood. WCW came in later on. I got into a bunch of stuff, ECW, and then took the longest break. Life happened, and when I got back into wrestling, TV was okay. It had some strong points. It had people like Bray Wyatt that I really, really liked, but I wanted to see something else, so I ended up getting into an indie show, and one of the first refs there, that his name was like Ref Red, and he's just the only thing about him that he had red hair, and people would just chant red, 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 and like every show that I would go to every month, like they would just know him as Red. Like I didn't even know his real name, but again, that was just something like just a little thing that would just be like, oh, that's so cool. And again, the refs kind of get pushed aside as this being, not the stars. But I mean, again, without you in the ring, the match looks really weird. I'll be honest with you. It doesn't look right at all. And then B, whatever else has to go on, it would just be if there was like no refs in wrestling at all. Let's just say the two wrestlers had to do it. It would be one of the weirdest like experiences. I think it would just be awkward and horrible. I mean, it
Yeah,
could be done, but the ref is just so crucial.
yeah, and it would be weird just 2 men just without a ref, and that's like why the ref is the most important part, because they're there to tell the story of why these two men and try and keep order. And that's what the main part of being a ref is, like, to be like tell the story of like, oh, there's two guys, two goals, and they're going at it, and but they still have to follow these rules.
Yeah, there's still rules, and I think that's what makes wrestling, wrestling, because there's, it's not like a street fight where you can just do whatever you want. Back in the day, there used to be a really strong thing of no closed fist punches. You see someone have the ref would go right over, break it up, make you slap, open palm. Um, there would be other kind of, just simple rules, count outs, this, that. But all those rules were also used in stories. A champion, he's able to, get himself DQ'd. He's able to get a count out and not lose that title. That's been used, many times. You'd have like Ric Flair work a great hour match and then get himself DQ'd so he wouldn't lose the title.
Right.
And that all takes what the ref does and how the ref works that. And even back in the day, there was also storylines with like Hebner. You had two of them, when he brought his brother in. That was pretty, impressive at the time because you had this ref, he did something dirty, and then they had two of them, and you realized, oh, he had a twin. And like, again, it was just stuff that wasn't done before. But it was another time that I noticed that, a ref kind of jumped into a different role.
Yes, sir.
So what are some of your favorite matches that you have refed?
Some of my favorite matches I ref. One big one that sticks out to me is I got to referee Heath Slater. That
Wow.
was a big accomplishment and a goal and dream I thought would never happen, because I remember little kid me always watching him, and then Backlash came to my hometown in Richmond for a pay-per-view. Um, and I had just gotten out of a 3-week stay at the hospital, and luckily one of my mom's friends gave us tickets, and I went and saw Heath win the titles. So from going from a little kid in a nosebleed section, watching him win the belts, to now being in the ring with him, raising his hand, that was cool.
Yeah, that must have been one hell of a moment.
It was.
Just even like I said, I mean, I think everybody in the industry is a fan at heart, right? At some point, but just to see a childhood hero or anybody and be able to be there officiating their match, raising their hand, it's like like you said, dreams come true. Whether you ended up wrestling him or you ended up, like you said, officiating, it's the same feeling. It's the same kind of wow, I've made it. There's somebody that I've used to admire and I do admire.
And
Um,
another one that was super crazy to me was, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's a teenage superstar, John Schuyler.
okay.
I met him a couple times when I was like 12, 13, 14, like growing up. Just watching them at these indie shows, and a couple months ago I was at a show. It was my first time with this show, and then a few days later, I got a text saying, "Hey, are you available May 11th?" I go, "I'm open," and the promoter was like, "Okay, cool, you're booked." And I'm like, "Huh?" And he was like, "Yeah, someone requested you." And come to find out, John Schuyler had requested me because he saw uh, I referee for Wrestling Evolution, and so being able to ref John Schuyler from being a fan to now be in the ring with him, that was a cool moment.
Now let me ask you, how do you control that kind of excitement or that kind of like? You must have been excited having these guys right next to you. How do you
Yeah,
kind of control that and act professional in that kind of moment?
so everyone's a fan, but especially being new, I kind of like stay calm. But he, me and him were both excited, and I'm gonna be honest, I cried happy tears a little bit, because like it's just crazy to be requested and to be able to step in the ring with someone you watched growing up. Uh, I just try to keep cool and act like it was another day when it was like the special day of my life. But we're all fans at the end of the day, and we just went out there to have fun, and it was just so cool.
It does. It sounds like an amazing moment, honestly, and just two amazing moments, really. And kind of just a good story of like what can happen if you get into an industry, you have a passion and you work it hard at it. You can kind of see your dreams come true there. As long as like you work at it, you work towards those goals. And it seems like you're doing that right now. You're making things happen for yourself. You're also looking to expand. You put some work into getting into other states. You're looking up north, up here. And again, these are all things, and you haven't even been refing for that long. So it's like that's a really good start.
Yes, sir. I know it's crazy because like I've only been doing this for 10 months, and almost all the things that I've accomplished and done, I thought would never happen or would take me years to accomplish. Because who's going to be pressed a new kid who's roughing, right? And really doesn't understand like the business side. I'm kind of like learn more about it, but it's crazy because like I would never thought I would have this much like happen so far. I when I got into it, I was like, I might ref once every month, but doing it every weekend and refereeing for some of the biggest names like Ricky Morton, C.W. Anderson, and so many other names, it's crazy. Like,
Well, you're good. You're good at it, obviously. I mean, if you weren't good, you wouldn't be getting these matches. You wouldn't be at these promotions. You wouldn't be working every weekend. People wouldn't be trusting you to work matches with names and their one ups and people they're bringing in. They'd be like, "Well, we have another ref. I'm sorry, no, no, don't need you." But the fact that you are getting booked and you are only 10 months in, you're doing something very, very, very right.
right, and it's awesome to go to different towns, different shows, and get more exposure.
Now, do you still go to the training school and still train kind of weekly?
So the training school I went to and graduated from, that's back home in Virginia. So that's about like 6 hour car ride. But if I'm ever in Virginia, I'll go up to it. But there's a lot of wrestling schools down here. So whenever I get off work, um, early or if I have time, I go. But there's some days where I'll get off work late, and or sometimes I'll have other things to do. But I definitely go try and do different schools to like get more knowledge and to get some ring time in because I want to like keep up with my skill and stay sharp and not like
Yeah. I mean, do you think would you say that a ref needs the same amount of ring time as a wrestler, or they can kind of like get a little away with a little less just because they're not going to be doing a lot of moves. It's more so, you're going to be diving and jumping and maybe rolling.
I I would say it all depends. But I would definitely say whenever you get a chance to go to a wrestling school, because you if you only ref like once a month or referee 1 week and you have like 3 4 weeks off, it will definitely help to get some ring time in case you forgot stuff and don't realize what to do.
Yeah, you don't want to get rusty. That's the last thing you want to do. And plus, you want to stay fresh. And I feel like, with anything, whether it's wrestling, right? I do a lot of other things myself with like graphics, music, visuals, different software, right? All that stuff I got to kind of keep up with it because it changes pretty quickly. Technology changes every year. A new phone comes out every year. All this new technology comes out. So, being in any kind of field, you kind of upgrade it. You kind of learn. I feel like wrestling's the kind of same. So every time you do go to a training or do go to a school, you're kind of refreshing yourself. You're learning what new people are doing, what the newer talent are doing, how are the newer people getting trained. You learn all different things. Um, and it keeps you up to date. Whether if you didn't do that and just kind of you work, let's just say a couple shows here and there, it's like you might be on old information, or things that might have changed in the meantime.
Right. And everything's changing, and you always need to stay up to date. And every time I go to a show, I like to whenever the ring's empty, I sometimes like to get in there and like practice before the show so I don't forget and can like kind of like refresh my memory. And one thing I love to do, and one main, well, I don't want to say main reason, but one reason I like to get in the ring is like to practice my referee slide and see if I'm able to slide or not, because some rings you are able to slide, and then there's some rings where it's hard to slide.
And those slides are pretty impressive, I have to say, because I always, I found ref to be very tedious work watching it because I'm always nervous, like, because you got to be really, really to a split second, especially on those counts, right? Like if it's not supposed to be a 3 count, but it's supposed to be really a 2.5, like you got to get it to that 2.5, but you
Right.
can't let it get to 3, or
And
otherwise it's over. It's like, oh, oh.
and I was always told always count to three. If they don't kick out, they don't kick out. That's not your fault. That's their fault.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So if the match is going, so like now let's, so I'm guessing you don't know the whole match, or if it's not, the whole thing isn't told to you and it's just kind of going, the finish is kind of up to them. You're just gonna keep rolling with it. They kick out, obviously you're prepared. But if
Right.
they barge, you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and you're just gonna call the match, regardless of who pinned it, whatever it is, whatever which way it was supposed to go.
Yes, sir. And there are a few times where I've almost hit the 3 count. They kicked out at the last second, but I was always told. And one, I don't know if you know him, George South. He's a big name.
Yep.
I gotten a lot of advice from him. He's a great guy and a great wrestler, and he told me always count to three, no matter what. And it's really helpful because you don't want to look dumb when you're counting one, two, and then like stop because you didn't kick out. So it's always
Yeah, yeah, no, and like recently, a couple months ago, on WWE, even there was like a spot. And the ref was, I don't know if what they were supposed to do, but the ref counted to 3, but it wasn't supposed to happen. They said he kicked out. You clearly said he didn't.
oh
And
the
then, yeah, and they just went with it and just kind of made the fans look like the dumb people. And it was just like, they should have just, given whoever the win and just go with it. Because,
yeah.
accidents do happen, but you got to just roll with that. And then, you can come back later on and fix it on a Monday Night Raw or something if you want. But don't make the fans look stupid. We're not dumb. We see what we see.
Right. I know what match you're talking about, the Money in the Bank with
Y-
Seth and Damien, right?
Yeah, I thought that was just kind of weird and just like, really? You're gonna go that route? Like, don't make us look stupid. We saw what we saw.
Oh yeah.
But I'm glad to hear that you do, like, you are told to count to 3, because at the end of the day, that's part of it too. Accidents can happen, but the show must go on. If it happens to be that you counted it and that's the way it goes, well, like you said, it'll be fixed next match. It's not always a detrimental hit. It's not the end of the world, but it's better than it happening, you stopping it, and it having to be like, well, no, it was 3, no, it was 2, no, it was, and like everybody, nowadays they got cameras on these things,
Oh right.
so everybody's watching it through a lens, hyper focus, and it's like you really can't get away with those accidents anymore.
Yeah.
But that's pretty cool. Especially who you're talking about training with. He is a really big name. What would you say the major obstacle is in being a ref?
I would say sometimes just sometimes there's not a lot of op- people, I guess, like people don't see you as a important part, or like some people like brush you off, or like there's some companies who like rather like, I don't know, it's weird because like some companies will be like, oh, we don't want this type of ref, or like it all depends because like there's some companies who I guess want payroll or like whatever the situation is, and like sometimes companies make the refs look stupid. So I guess that's the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, and you don't want to be. I mean, not for nothing, but you don't want. Nobody wants to look stupid.
Right.
It's not a good look for their careers. I understand people have to do something storyline wise, but you don't want the refs to look, stupid. Because at the end of the day, again, you guys are like the officials. When growing up of wrestling, the ref was always kind of that final say. They had they if they didn't like how things were going, they could just DQ you at a dime. Be like, you know what, it's over.
Right.
Um, and I feel like over the years, that kind of diminished a little bit the role of the ref as having such power. Things have kind of even I feel like in wrestling, like the out count when they're outside the ring, it's gotten so slow over the years. It's like one, and it'll be like 5 minutes later, they'll be at like three.
Right.
And before they used to count till 10. They used to physically make the guy roll in and roll back out to keep the count going. Just little things like that. The other thing I don't see a lot of is people cheating as much, like brass knuckles in the trunks or anything like that, which was another fun part of wrestling because you never knew what they would do and like how the ref would get distracted.
Right.
Um, I'm an old school wrestling fan. What can I say? I do like the older kind of style of the storytelling, but again, wrestling is wrestling. And like I said, your role in there again is to be between those, the two men or the girls or whoever you're referring, and to get that story to flow. They're
Right.
telling it through fists, and you're kind of in between telling it how it's going to be going and what's going on. And again, that's again the third man in the match. I always, like I said, I have a lot of respect for the refs because they have to do so much and they have to kind of contain themselves too because again, you have to know just like I said, the right point to kind of pull yourself back and not take over the spotlight of them. You also need to know your ring awareness, right? Where to step in the ring, what the ring is like, if there's weak spots. You also got to not be standing in front of the cameraman, the hard cam, everything else. Like there's so much you have to do mentally, not even to mention what you got to do physically. So it's a job.
Yeah, and that's like some most times when I get in the ring, I'll check to see if like the ropes are loose or if the turnbuckle is messed up or if the board under the ring is messed up. And sometimes I one side did the ropes were super loose, and then I know one time I had to stop the mats because they went for a body slam and the wrestler's feet hit the light because it was like low ceiling. So I stopped the mats and I cleaned up the lights and glass before they can continue because I don't want the wrestlers and it's not safe for them to wrestle on glass.
No, no. I mean, and that's the end of the day. It is safety first. No one's trying to get killed out there.
Right.
People might bleed, people might do death matches, people might do hardcore matches, but no one's trying to kill anybody. No one's trying to go to the hospital at the end of the night. Everything they're hoping for is just a flesh wound. They're not trying to get deeply punctured and bleed out there. So you want to avoid all the stuff that really can hurt them. And kind of keeping an eye on that. If, did something break? That's also ring awareness too. What's around the ring? Did fans spill water in the they're gonna slip and fall out there.
Right.
Bunches of things can happen. That you're kind of like I said, the one. Couple more questions. Have you ever had to be in an issue where somebody was injured during your match?
Um, I wouldn't say like yeah, a few times, but nothing like too serious where they wanted me to stop the match. The guys could still go. One time a guy got hit butt and got busted open, and then one time a wrestler's elbow hyper extended and whatnot, but we still continue, but nothing, thankfully, too bad. No broken bones or anything.
You didn't have to like throw the X up in the middle of the match and get people out there or anything. Well, that's
Thanks.
good though, because you don't want to see anybody ever get hurt. Injuries in wrestling, I think, are one of the worst things because What people don't realize is it doesn't just affect their wrestling. You know, granted they can't wrestle, and we're not going to see them for a while. That sucks, but it affects their real life too. They have trouble going to their regular job, which really pays them. So when they
Right.
get injured, they're out. They're out. They're out. And wrestling don't doesn't. I don't know about North Carolina, but up here it doesn't really pay a lot of bills. It doesn't carry insurance. It doesn't do all that. So if you get injured, you get injured. You're out. It's not a fun time.
Right.
And granted, these things can kind of happen just to the best trained wrestlers, just going out there and doing what they do every night. You just step the wrong way or move the wrong way, and you could pull, something out and injure yourself. Kind of scary to think about because it does happen, more often than I think people think. Wrestlers are tough. They're always pulling something. Sometimes they'll work through it, like you said, little things. Other times they will be stopped, or they'll get concussed by accident and they'll stop their own match. Like, okay, let's end it early. And again, that's for safety. Wrestling, I think, has evolved to that point where it's gotten a lot safer. Maybe in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't like that, and people were just fighting and fighting and keep going. Let's just see how far we can take it, and we could see that hasn't been so good on people's bodies and minds. So it's good to see that people are aware that injuries, can kind of come before the show, and there's a
Right.
way to kind of work it in there where it's it can make sense, but it's people's lives and safety aren't getting sacrificed for the show to go on anymore.
Right. Yeah, and it always sucks when someone does get injured because you can't pay. You're out of your job, and sometimes you only make enough to pay for gas and food, but it can't pay rent or anything unless you're in like the WWE.
Yeah, but you also grind out there grinding for experience. You're grinding for their name. You're trying to build a name for yourself. You're trying to get looked at. So maybe, hey, who knows? Someday the WWE will see you, but they only can see people that are really, I feel like, everywhere. If you're only in one or two places and aren't moving around, the likelihood of getting seen is a lot less than someone that's going to, 10 different states working 30, 40 promotions in the course of a year.
Right.
Um, and it's just, some people are fine with just working, the local scene. Other people want to get out there and see how far it can take them. I mean, it sounds like you want to just go out and see where this journey brings you. Um, and I think you're gonna go pretty far in it. Honestly, you're already doing really well in 10 months. And once you really start getting out there, the sky's the limit. You've already had really good matches, I feel.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
Um, have you ever had a like Montreal screw job anybody like just ring the bell and end their match?
Thankfully, not.
No, that must be kind of that must have been a kind of weird situation though, right? Like you must get heat if you had to do it from the wrestler. I'm saying, they'd be
Right.
like, "What's going on here?" Well, we were told otherwise tonight.
Right.
Um, I always ask that though because I always wonder if that ever happens on the indie scene. Like people just get bitter and like, you know what, we're gonna change things last minute.
Thankfully, I haven't been a part of that. So,
Well, that's good. That's good. Keep it clean, right? So tell me, what shows are you gonna be coming up at next? Where people can see you in action?
this Saturday, I'll be at Square Circle Champion at Mount Pleasant Elementary School. And then October 5th, I'll be in Bloxham, Virginia. And then October 12th, I'll be at Wrestling Evolution in Denver. October 26th, I'll be in Richmond, Virginia, my hometown. So that's going to be a fun night. My first time doing an event in downtown Richmond. So I'm excited. And then November 8th, I'm at Wrestling Evolution again. And December 7th, Wrestling Evolution. So I still got a lot more dates available.
Awesome, though. Very busy, very great. That's awesome. And how can folks find you on social media? How can they follow along to see all this great action?
So they can go to my Instagram, type in referee Charles Fuller, or they'll type in mullet ref, and then on Facebook, Charles Fuller.
Okay, great. And definitely send me some links to some of these promotions because I wanna see this North Carolina scene a little bit more. Definitely check out some more wrestling down that way. But thank you again for coming on to 1, 2, 3 Winner. It's been a pleasure, honestly, getting to know you and hearing your ref stories and stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Anytime, and we'll check back in and have you come back maybe on in a couple of months and see how you're doing. If you know how you've made it getting out and checking out other promotions. Thank you very much.
That'll be
And,
awesome.
and thank you everybody at home for watching 1, 2, 3 Winner. Well, you're a winner too. Have a good night, everybody. Versace Stoner out.